I don't know about you, when I'm looking for a plumber, I like to read my reviews. HomeAdvisor.com gave me some reviews on our sponsor, Art of Plumbing. Called them. They arrived on time. Immediately found the plumbing issue and fixed it right the first time. I called them last year and it was great. I called them again this year because I had a problem again. They came out, they fixed the problem. They even gave me solutions to help stop the problem in the future at 541-9405.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I'm your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for joining us today. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you. Episode 100. We have finally hit 3-digit numbers. And it is with great pleasure I introduce our next guest to you. He is a former Marine. He retired as a gunnery sergeant. And he's going to be telling us about his What Happened When. And maybe this episode is a little more special than normal. Not only is it our 100th episode, but it is also a long-awaited episode for me. I started out with a unicorn list, and so just to help you out with that, that is a list of people that I created when I started the show that I wanted to have on. And believe it or not, the very first person on that list is now sitting before me. So help me welcome in my dad, as I call him. We also call him Gunny, but his name is also Curtis. So we'll stick with Gunny today. Gunny, how are you today?
I'm here.
Yes, you are. You are here, and I appreciate you doing this, my 100th episode. So it's fun that you get to be my 100th guest. So I don't know if you knew that or not, but there you are.
Do I get a T-shirt?
You could. I could get you a T-shirt for sure. Yeah, what size are you?
Too big.
Too big. All right, fair enough. So we always like to lead off with a very fun question, which is what size shoes do you wear?
13.
13. Is there a certain style or brand you like more than another?
No, not really.
Okay, I noticed you're wearing some New Balance today, so I just was wondering about that.
Yeah, these are the ones I wear when I have shorts.
Okay.
And then I got a pair of high-tech Magnums that I wear when it's wintertime.
Why those particularly?
Because they're waterproof.
Okay. No like steel-toed boots to them or
No.
anything like that?
No.
No?
They're just a short-top boot that I like.
All right, fair enough. So we'll wear those today. Maybe the high-tech, what'd you call them, Magnum? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure. I know you're not wearing those, but we'll just pretend you are because it's,
Okay.
they're a cooler shoe to wear than your New Balance there.
Well, it depends on your perspective.
That's what we're all about today is your perspective. So getting back into that, you gave us a date. Well, you gave us a time period, June 1991, and you picked that out specifically out of all the days to pick out for you. You picked that one, and if I can ask, why that one?
Well, I think I picked that one because that was my last technical exercise that I went on. I was on my way to the Persian Gulf at that time, and we got diverted to the Philippines because the volcano Mount Pinatubo blew up.
You said that actually really well. I practiced Pinatubo, by the way, so that's good that you just rolled that off your tongue like it was nothing.
I'm used to speaking foreign languages.
Yeah. So you're on your way to the Persian Gulf. So Desert Storm has already taken place, right?
Correct.
The first go-round?
Yeah, the first go-round, we were going in to clean everything up.
And do you know why you were sent to clean everything up, or that just was what you were told to do?
Well, we'd been geared up to go, but everything happened so quick, we were on the bubble to go anyway, so we had to go.
Yeah, and so is this part of your 6-month float that you did? I'm remembering that as a kid.
Yes.
So, okay. So you're on the USS Peleliu, if I remember right?
Correct.
Right. So, which is a helicopter carrier, if I remember right?
It's a helicopter landing ship.
Okay. So can you help me with that? What is that? It just is designed to have helicopters take off from it?
If you look at the picture of the ship, it's an aircraft carrier about the size of small ones during World War II. They have helicopters, they have Harriers on there. They have amphibious ships or Amtraks in the bottom of the ship. They had a hovercraft in there.
Wow. So they were ready to go. If they needed to respond to anything, they would be ready to respond.
Oh yeah, when you're out on a 6-month float, you're basically an advanced element of the Marine Corps. They have everything they need. They have artillery, they have infantry, they have the helicopters. Everything is on the ship or the ships that were in that float.
Now, were you guys with anybody, or were you just kind of by yourself, kind of floating this floating city by yourself?
Well, we had we had 4 other ships with us. It's just the way they go. The LHA never travels by itself. There's an LST and another ship. I can't even remember what the designation is now because I'm so old.
What's an LST? Help me with that, if you don't mind also.
That's a landing ship tank.
Okay, a landing ship tank.
Yeah, it's got a flat bottom to it and a big boom on the front, ramps in the front so they can pull right up on the beach, open their front doors, and drive off.
So would that be very similar to what they did in Normandy? Kind of a similar ship?
Yeah.
Just a newer version maybe?
It's a similar ship. It's just bigger.
Okay, fair enough. So you're on your way there. The volcano happens, and you guys get diverted to go there. Do you remember what your first impression? Had you been to the Philippines before?
Yeah, many times.
Okay, so this is kind of old hat going to the Philippines for you.
Yeah.
So do you remember what it was like when you got to the Philippines this time that made it different in times past?
Well, we got up on the deck of the ship at 08 in the morning, and it was raining. And we didn't get off the ship until 2200 that night, and it was still raining. But it wasn't just rain or water that was coming down. It was also sand, because we were so close to the volcano, we weren't getting ash. We were actually getting wet sand that was falling out of the sky.
Wow. So do you remember interacting with any of the people once you got to the land?
Not in the beginning. They took us off the ship, 2200. We're standing on the dock, and I looked at my Marines and I said, fellas, we're in trouble. If you look over at the sewer lid, the cockroaches are leaving.
Why was that so significant to you of being in trouble?
Cockroaches don't leave. They're there forever. It's always said if there's a nuclear war, the cockroaches will be the only thing that survives. So if you see the cockroaches swimming up out of the sewer, you know you're in trouble.
Yeah. So what was that like? Once you got on land, the cockroaches obviously leaving. Like, can you walk us through that kind of first experience?
Yeah, they loaded us up on some trucks, took us inland. It was dark, couldn't see anything. The rain's still coming down pretty heavy. They had to find us a place to sleep, because it was so late we couldn't do anything that night. So they took us to a Navy base, and we wound up sleeping in a jet engine repair shop.
What was that like?
It's pretty hectic. Your cots were touching, so if you rolled over, you might roll over on your buddy.
Yeah, that takes on a new element of a bed buddy, I would imagine.
Yeah. So then we got up the next morning, and they had started offloading our equipment. We had a bulldozer and a forklift, a couple of dump trucks, so we could start helping with the people. Buildings had already collapsed under the weight of the sand. I've got pictures of 5-foot drifts of sand in the area where we stayed. And then they assigned us the task of driving dump trucks. The first thing they wanted us to do was dig out public works there at the base so that they could start using their equipment because everybody was buried in sand.
Do you remember if any of the people were panicking or anyone local just freaking out or anything?
Yeah, we had a confrontation. Some of our military police wound up out in town off of the base, and they wound up getting into a confrontation with the Philippine police over jurisdiction and who was supposed to do what. And while we were there, we were told you're supposed to walk around locked and loaded, have a round in the chamber, because the sand and the earthquakes and all that stuff was freaking the monkeys out that lived there. And if you saw them, you were supposed to shoot them on sight. We never saw one.
Shoot the monkeys on site.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow.
So I spent 3 days total driving a dump truck. I got an hour break each day to eat a meal and maybe grab a few minutes of sleep. Most of the time I just sat around and smoked a cigar and made a couple of phone calls home and then went right back to the truck.
Wow. And you did that for 3 days straight?
Correct.
How the heck did you manage on virtually no sleep?
You're trained to do that.
That's part of the Marine training?
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
You don't get a whole lot of sleep when you're out in the field anyway. So, job had to be done, and we did it. They also sent my electrician who was with us. They sent him out to the airfield, and him and 4 other guys got all the generators cleaned out and working at the airfield. And then we spent time cleaning the airfield of sand so they could fly some planes in.
So were you guys the only quote-unquote military presence there, or were there other aid workers and other people there?
Well, at that time, there was still American military there, but they were covered with sand. So until we could dig them out, they couldn't help. But once we started digging them out because our equipment came off and was clean, and they started making adjustments to their vehicles, they were able to take over from us. The scary part was when they decided to take all the military dependents, load them up on our ship, and the ship left.
Your ship left.
Correct.
The Peleliu left.
Yeah, with us still on the beach.
What'd you think about that?
Didn't think much about it. They had to get them people out. We had a job to do, so that's what we did.
Did you ever think they weren't coming back?
No, they had to come back. Worst thing you'd do is leave a bunch of Marines with nothing to do sitting around.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that must have been like. So you didn't interact with any of the civilians or anybody like that?
No, we did after the 3 days, after we got all the Navy people dug out and the Air Force people, then we were given liberty for a couple of days. Well, it might even be a couple of days. It's so hard to remember it all.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since 1991.
Yeah. Well, and I stood shore patrol.
So what is that? Help me with that.
Well, that's you put an armband on and you go around and make sure that all the Marines are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Kind of like a hall monitor at school almost?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. So you're doing that, and so you got to kind of talk to some people?
Yep. I went into several of the bars and establishments there. One of the things that really got me was when I approached the bar, there's all this bamboo scaffolding up on the outside of it. And as we're walking in, there was an earthquake. So we're going in, and all the people inside the bar were running out. But we went in and checked it out and made sure that, all the beer was taken care of.
I was just going to ask, did you sample any of said beer?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure of that. Wanted to make sure it was all on tap and working right, just in case they came back after the earthquake, right?
Yeah.
So, out of all the things to remember, you spent how many years in the Marine Corps again? Remind me.
Well, technically 21 years, 8 months, 23 days. I say 22.
So 22 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always give you 2 extra years, by the way. I think I call it 24 most of the time, so.
Yeah, whatever.
But I'm just curious about this. Why do you think you were allowed to be put in that situation to be there to do that and to witness that?
Because there was nobody else. There was nobody else. By the time they'd have flown people in there and got people from somewhere else, things could have been worse than what they were. We were there. We were close enough that we were able to pull in. We had the equipment on the ship that we were able to offload and start using it right away. We were in the right spot at the right time.
Do you ever wonder about that? If you weren't there, how bad it would have been for the Philippines people?
No. I don't have second thoughts like that. I just do my job. And I know if I do my job well, everything will be all right.
Yeah. Something good about doing your job and doing it well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So any lessons you learned about yourself during that time period?
Well, it's hard to say. I learn lessons every day, but I don't pick them out and say, hey, I learned that today. I just look at that date as my last kind of exercise, even though we went on to the golf and did our thing there, blew stuff up and crap like that. I look at that as kind of a ending. When I started in the Marine Corps, way back when I went to Thailand back in 1972, I helped.
You're joking, of course, right?
About what?
The 1922?
I said 72.
Oh, I thought you said 19.
If you cleaned your ears out, you might hear it.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So in 72, I went to Thailand, and one of the jobs I did over there was I helped in a leper colony build a physical therapy room. They had a big room that they kept their medications in, so we divided it so medications and stuff were on one side, secure, and then physical therapy was on the other. So I thought it was kind of unique that I started my career kind of doing a humanitarian thing, and I ended my career the same way.
What are some of your highlights of your career?
You don't have enough time.
I have some time. Can you give us a few?
You really want highlights?
I do. I want some highlights if you're willing to share some.
2 wars, 3 rodeos, 8 goat roping, 16 barroom brawls, 3 insurrections, 2 police actions, Los Angeles riots, and now a pandemic. Those are the highlights.
Those are the highlights. Is there anything you would you'd like to, if you got to redo somehow or mulligan in the Marine Corps, what would you want?
Well, I just wish I was fit enough and young enough to go back and do it again.
You do it all over again?
You bet.
Why?
Well, there's something about the Marine Corps and serving your country and doing the things I did that just sticks with you. I enjoyed every minute of it, even in the bad times, even in the, natural disasters. And I like to tell people, I've done every natural disaster that you can think of except a tornado and an avalanche. That's
crazy to think about.
Yeah. So I just had fun.
You would do it all over again.
Yes, in a heartbeat. In 2003, when the war broke out in the Middle East again, I made it as far as Portland. I was going back in, but they laughed at me.
Why did they laugh at you?
You're too old and too broken. If we need you, we'll call you.
Yeah.
But I told them, I said, hey, I can go out and teach.
Yeah.
But they didn't call me.
Well, they got your number though, right?
Yeah, it's 0 now.
So thinking back, I just want to share this with you. I've always been proud to say that you're not only my father, but I'm proud to say that you are a United States Marine. And, I didn't understand it. I still don't. But I'm proud that you are. So could you help me try to understand why at times I feel like you may love the Marine Corps more than you love our family?
Well, technically, you could say I do. Because there's something inside a lot of Marines, and I'm one of them. There's something inside about duty, honor, courage, and commitment. Those aren't just words that go along with being a Marine. Those are inside your heart. A sense of duty. What does that mean? Well, that means that you've got to do what you're supposed to do. And if that means leaving your family for 6 months or a year to go do your duty, that's what you do. It's just what I do, and that's what a lot of Marines do. And a lot of people in the military do that. They have a strong sense of duty, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think, I remember growing up not understanding why you had to go, not understanding why you talk about the duty, the honor. I didn't get that. I just knew you were gone. And and I blamed the Marine Corps. I didn't think of it as your job. I thought of it as this thing, taking my dad away again, putting my dad in harm's way. I was 11, obviously, in 91. I don't remember the volcano blowing up, but you do, obviously, because you were there firsthand. But I don't get that. I don't understand that. And I think that's also part of the reason why I was excited that you agreed to sit with me, is because I thought in some way maybe you could help me, like I said, still understand that duty element of it, and to think and to hear you even say today, hey, you do it all over again. Do you feel like being a Marine costs you anything?
Oh, sure. Cost me a family. But why do people run toward gunfire? Why do firemen run toward burning buildings? They have a sense of duty. They want to save lives. And in the back of my mind, maybe that's the same thing I did it for. But I don't think of those things when I do it. I just do it because it has to be done. And if I don't do it, who is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Who would do that? And I think, again, Dad, that's why no matter what's happened between us, is I feel like you taught me that lesson, that no matter what needs to be done, that's my job, that's my assignment, that's my calling, whatever it may be, to go and do that to the very best that I can. I think you did instill that in me. Is there any lessons you learned in the Marine Corps that you really feel like that you didn't have before you got in?
Yeah, but I don't think we can say them on air.
You can say them. It's okay. I don't know what they are, but I'm okay with whatever you want to say.
Well, the lesson I learned is to treat everybody like you want to be treated. And that's from the Bible. I used to have Marines that would say, hey, you don't want to go to this country because, it's a crap hole.
Whatever the country may be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you won't have fun there because there's nothing to do. Or, that duty station sucks. Always went with an open mind. Don't let somebody else tell you what kind of life you're going to live. Every place I went, I had fun because I didn't listen to other people. I did what I needed to do to entertain myself.
What was the scariest place you ever went?
Well, I'd have to say Vietnam was probably the scariest because I didn't know what the hell I was doing then because I was young.
How old were you?
20.
Yeah. What was your job there, your duty, if you will?
I was an engineer. My first duty there was to go out and sweep a road with a mine detector.
Is that scary?
Yeah, especially when they set off a bomb up the road and killed some people. Combat's always scary.
Yeah. And you were in Vietnam for how long?
Fortunately, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because when I got there, everybody was leaving.
Well, that's a good thing, I guess, right?
Yeah. That's how I wound up in Thailand.
Yeah.
When they came and picked us up on the trucks to leave Vietnam, they said everybody was 6 months, stand over here. Everybody with less than 6 months, stand over here. Well, there was me and another guy. They said, you're going to Thailand.
And you said, okay, here we go.
Had no choice.
Right. So Vietnam was pretty scary. What about the happy? I know it sounds weird to say maybe the happiest place or maybe a joyful place for you.
Oh, I would have to say that would be Japan.
And why there?
I don't know. I just love Japan. I love the people. I love the culture. The people are really friendly and laid back. There's no hectic. Well, there is hectic hustle and bustle in the cities, but most of the time it's pretty laid back. And I had a good time in Japan. The big thing is, try and learn some of the language.
Why was that important to you to learn the language?
Well, because if you learn the language, the people understand you, and you can understand them. And then you know where they're coming from, they know where you're coming from. Just the way it is.
That's a great perspective. I never even thought about that.
Well, and
from that standpoint before.
And we as Americans, we kind of look down on people. because they do things different than we do. You go to Japan and you might see two guys in a business suit squatting on a sidewalk, conducting business. We look at that and go, hey, what the hell are they doing? Or you go to Thailand, you might see two guys walking down the street holding hands. Back in the 70s, people would have said, hey, those are gay guys. Not necessarily. That's just a way they show affection. Whether they're gay or not, who cares? It's their culture. Learn their culture. That way you don't insult people.
I think that's a great lesson to be learned, right? Because it's the idea of you're trying to get yourself into their culture, into their mindset, into their understanding, and try to come at it from that standpoint.
Correct. That's how I used to do it. And I used to tell that to my Marines whenever I was in charge. Just like when we went to the Gulf and we're, pulled into Singapore or the Arab countries, the first thing everybody did when they got off the ship, they went to Burger King, they went to McDonald's, they went to Pizza Hut. Not me. I found the vendor on the street. I ate his food. Guys were paying $5 for a can of Budweiser. I went to the vendor and got that same can for $1.50.
Probably appreciated the fact that you were supporting him, I would imagine.
That's exactly why I did it.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson to be learned there. What's one thing you're certain about, without a shadow of a doubt? Like you said, if you were going to pin it to one thing or maybe a couple of things, what are you absolutely certain about?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, when you think about that question, you're like, I know I'm absolutely certain about this, whatever it may be.
Oh, gosh, that's hard to come up with because I'm not certain about anything.
Really? Nothing at all? Nothing comes to mind?
To be certain about something,
yeah,
you have to be positive about the outcome. I'm not positive about outcomes because stuff changes.
Okay. Like, can you think of an example where you maybe had an idea of something and then it immediately changed?
Man, you ask all these questions that are so philosophical.
I'm just trying to get in your perspective, that's all.
Well, look, I'm an old Marine.
I know you are, but...
Okay, but I'm not certain about anything other than death and taxes and that the sun may come up.
It's a good thing to be certain about.
I said may. The sun may come up. The
It's
world
true.
might end, too.
It's true. So why did you want to be a Marine?
Well, because my heroes when I was growing up were people like John Wayne, watching the movies on the TV. I figured if I was going in the military, I might as well go in the best. It was hard, but I did it.
What made it so hard?
Well, I got sick before graduation. And because I had strep throat, I lost 25 pounds. Couldn't eat. So the night before the final PFT, the guy that slept in the wreck below mine told the drill instructor I was sick. So he sent me to sick bay. Came back from sick bay with a chit that said, bed rest. Drill instructor says, I'll give you a choice. He says, you can be on bed rest and we'll recycle you, or you can take the PFT. And if you fail, we'll recycle you. So I took the PFT and I failed. Got recycled.
What is that? I mean, I know what recycle means, but in the terms of the military, what does it mean?
Well, if you have a medical thing, they have a group called Medical Rehabilitation Platoon, where they send all the people that have injuries so they can recuperate and then maybe proceed on with the Marine Corps. If the injury's too bad, they discharge them. For people who are physically impaired in some way or fail the PFT, they used to send you to a place called PCP, Physical Conditioning Platoon. And you had 30 days. If you didn't pass 2 PFTs in 30 days, they discharge you as physically unfit.
So you passed, obviously.
No.
Oh, you still didn't pass.
No. So you had to do 2 PFTs, one on Wednesday and one on Saturday. And back then you had alternate activities. Like if you couldn't do pull-ups, then you did push-ups. If you couldn't do sit-ups, then you did leg lifts. So on Wednesday, you do the primary, and then on Saturday, you would do the alternate. And they kept changing the rules. Like one day, you might have to do 6 pull-ups. The next time, you might have to do 10 pull-ups. You might have to do 20 push-ups. The next time, it's 30 push-ups. So I didn't pass all of the PFTs. So after 45 days, they sent me up to discharge me as being physically unfit. And I was ready to go.
You were ready to go at that point?
Yeah, I was done.
Even though you had this desire to be a Marine, you're like, well, I tried, I gave it my best, I'm out.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the drill instructor came in, told me to pack my crap, report up to...
I'm sure he was much more colorful than that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I packed all of my stuff
very
up.
Nice.
And I was sitting outside headquarters. And he came in there and he started yelling at me and calling me names, fun names. And he had a super ball. You know what a super ball is?
Yeah, I do. Like a bouncy ball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he would take that super ball and he would bounce it in a fashion to where it would hit me and emphasize his words with it. So that was one of the reasons I was ready to go. So then I went up to regiment, went inside, and there was a gunnery sergeant in there. Gunnies are evil. So he's looking through my test scores, and he says, son, how many sit-ups can you do? I said, sir, private can do 80 in 2 minutes. He says, well, that's not what it says here. It says you can only do 60. Well, they'd put my sit-up score and my leg lift score, they'd reversed them so it looked like I couldn't do sit-ups. So he had 2 privates take me outside and with a watch and time me for sit-ups. 80 in 2 minutes is 100 points. I did 80 in a minute and a half and quit.
Wow. 80 sit-ups in a minute and a half?
Yep.
That's impressive.
I thought so.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could do that.
So then I went back in and gunnery sergeant asked him how I did. And the guy said, sir, he did 80 in a minute and a half. And then he quit. And gunnery sergeant jumped up, grabbed me by the shirt and said some nasty names and said, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to give you an administrative graduation. Welcome to the Marine Corps, son. And I thought to myself, God, what have I done?
Wonder where that gunny is now.
Dead.
Yeah. Man. So then you go from there to Vietnam, and then you go to Thailand, right?
Well, I went to engineer school first and dinked around there. And then I went to Okinawa. And then from Okinawa, I went to Vietnam. And then from Vietnam to Thailand. And then from Thailand home and married your mother.
Yeah. So you end up going to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, too, at one point, right?
Yeah, that was 1977.
What'd you do there?
Found landmines.
You're pretty good at that, huh?
Well, it's not the finding that gets you. It's when they go boom that gets you. Yeah, I spent a lot of time with mine detectors looking for landmines in my 22 years.
What is, if you can you walk us through what that experience is like when you're out there? Like, try to get us in your. I know we're wearing your high tech shoes today, but I mean we're now in your combat boots. I feel like a little bit like. What is it? What is that like? Can you walk us through what that would be like? Like a typical day, I guess.
Well, a typical day would start at 05 in the morning, where you'd go down and load up all the trucks, get water for the day, make sure you got your corpsman with you, ambulance with you, and then you'd truck out to whichever minefield you were working in. And then you would go out there and stage everything and get everything ready, because by the time the sun come up, you were crossing over into the minefield and spent the day looking for mines and replacing them.
Why would you replace them?
Well, because mines are made out of metal and they rust.
Okay.
The longer you leave them in the ground, the more chances are they can rust and be ineffective because they'll fall apart on you.
Okay. So you're basically replacing what was put there initially, if you will.
Yeah, when I first got there, we were on year rotation. You could get all the fields done in a year, and then you'd start over. So the mines we were taking out and replacing were mines that would be put in by other Marines previous to us being there.
And you can't obviously have them marked like, hey, here's mine number, let's say 27.
No.
You know, because
No.
that would obviously defeat the whole purpose of it being there, right?
Yeah, but you do have a map, and because you've been to engineer school, you know what the minefield looks like, because the standard minefield all looks the same. You have a base mine in a semicircle, and then you have a mine at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. So you have an idea of about where they are. But sometimes, depending on the weather, that mine may sink in the ground, so you can't see it. Or it might rise up out of the ground where you can see the whole thing. Or it might float. It might move 4, 5, 6 inches.
Did you experience anybody being killed in the minefield?
Yep. I went to work in August of 77, and in October, the most experienced guy down there was blown up. And I got hit in the back of the head on the helmet with a piece of shrapnel.
So you were there the day he basically found the mine? And
Yeah, I was
led
in
to his
I
death?
was in the field.
Oh, wow.
And there was a group of people down there from either NBC or CBS that was filming a documentary on the minefields and stuff, and they were shooting. And one of the sergeants went up and made them stop taking video.
Because of the casualty?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know him pretty well?
Oh, yeah, I did. He was the most experienced guy down there. He's the one that taught me before I went in. So I worked with him from August until I went out in the fields in July. So,
And that day, I mean, not to dismiss his life or anything like that, but the explosion with the volcano, that was well, I see what your point, you know, because you started with a humanitarian mission when you first started, and then you end with one, but that where does that one rank as far as like events in the Marine Corps in your life?
well, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's probably a 12. But then again, so is a volcano. 'Cause these things, you just don't know how they're going to turn out, you know?
Right.
Just don't know.
What'd you feel like when you? I mean, I'm guessing you probably saw him like laying there and stuff. I mean, did you
No.
remember what you felt like or
No.
anything?
No, didn't get to see him except when they carried him out. In the minefields, there's 2 ways in. There's a main entrance and then what they call an emergency exit. And everything inside the minefield has metal cables kind of lining the path to show you where to go. So when the explosion happened, he was behind me. We were the furthest away from the entrance. So we had to go out the emergency exit because we knew everybody was coming in the main exit to get him out. So by the time we got out the emergency exit, they was bringing him out on a stretcher and loading him on a helicopter.
Wow. I mean, you obviously heard it, right? Or are you wearing like protective?
No, I not only heard it, I felt it. Because like I say, I got
right
hit with,
with the
hit with a
shrapnel.
piece of steel.
Yeah.
But when that happened, I thought it was artillery because they fired artillery every once in a while a little ways away from us on this range. And so I thought artillery had gone off. And then the piece of steel hit my helmet, and I was like, what the hell is that? Maybe the guy working with me is throwing rocks at my helmet, you know, because they do stuff like that. And then I stood up and turned around and saw the cloud of smoke and went to the safety lane and laid down until they told us to move out.
Wow. I can't even imagine what that must have been like to know that you're in the same field as somebody that loses their life. I mean, that's crazy to think about.
But you do your job, you know. When you're in the military, you understand that there's almost always a chance that somebody's going to die. We have people die in training. I mean, gosh, just 2-3 months ago, an Amtrak sank with a full crew on its way either to or from San Clemente Island. People die in training. We had a corpsman die at 29 Palms. We all went to sleep in our sleeping bags, woke up the next morning, and the corpsman's dead. They never did tell us why he died. It happens. It's not that you get used to it. It's just that you know that there's an inherent risk that you could die every time you go out. And you understand that what I'm doing could get me killed or could get my friends killed. But we kind of accept that inherent danger because of our sense of duty and because we know we have a job to do.
Why in Cuba did we have a minefield, do you know? I mean, not getting too political, but...
Well, we had a naval base there for the longest time, and then when Castro took over, he wanted us out. Well, we had signed a 99-year lease with the Cuban government, and we weren't going to leave. So to keep the communist Cubans out, we put in minefields to protect the base.
So it was like a deterrent from people coming to the base to do harm potentially to the base?
Correct.
Okay. Just trying to understand why there was a minefield there in Cuba when it's not our land.
In case the Cubans and the Russians ever decided to invade the Navy base.
That makes sense.
So, and, you know, because of political things, we weren't going to give that Navy base up because then, you know, it would have fallen to the communists. So we kept it, mined it, and worked it.
Yeah, so the movie A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise is in that. There's shots of that in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Do you recognize any of those shots from the movie? I know I'm probably testing your memory of that movie, but...
Somewhat. The whole thing was a movie.
Yeah.
Never heard the term Code Red.
Not down there in Gitmo, huh?
No. If he was going to do something like that, it would have been called a blanket party.
Yeah. I just was wondering about that. That made me think of that when we were talking about Guantanamo Bay. So,
well, the worst depiction of that is in the movie Bad Boys 2.
Oh, the Will Smith one?
Yeah.
And Martin Lawrence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where they drive up to the front gate in the car and there's all this sand and barricades out there. That gate doesn't exist, or it didn't when I was there.
Yeah.
And we used to have what they call commuters, actual Cuban citizens that came over onto the base to work. They had been working there before Castro. But Castro decided, hey, it's a good deal to keep these Cubans working there because A, I can gather intelligence, and B, I can take their money. But what these ingenious Cubans did was they opened a bank account on the base. So every time they got a pay raise, they put that pay raise in the bank account on the base and gave Castro his share.
That's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about Vietnam being scary. You talk about, your happier moments in Japan. Is there one thing you wish you would have accomplished that you didn't get to? Or maybe something you wanted to go do but you didn't get to do?
Well, I used to think that I wanted to be a master sergeant. But then when I think about it after all these years, it was like, no, because I wouldn't have been able to keep doing my job. Once you get up to master sergeant, they usually put you in an office somewhere, and I don't like being in an office.
You like being out in the field with the guys?
Yeah, because I can go out there and, if nothing else, teach them. And I love teaching. So I would have rather stayed in the field. I mean, I applied for warrant officer once when I was in Cuba. Didn't get it. Couldn't reapply because I was too old. But I learned then I enjoyed what I did as an engineer, and I wanted to keep doing that. And if you get promoted to warrant officer or you get promoted to master sergeant, that field time goes away.
What was the best part about being a gunny? Because I know that's how I call you. That's how you are in my phone. I know that a lot of people, I mean, you kind of wear that name with some honor and some respect. But
well, I think the best part about being a gunny was that when I was out in the field, I was pretty much in control. I mean, yeah, the officers were there. And when you're in the rear, the first sergeant's in charge. But when you're in the field, the company gunny's in charge. He's responsible for food. He's responsible for ammunition. He's responsible for everything, training. So I kind of enjoyed that.
Why did you enjoy it so much?
Gave me a sense of accomplishment. I knew what I was doing. I was good at it.
Did you ever have a gunny that you kind of modeled your role after or anything like that?
No,
Or how did you learn, I guess, to be such a good gunny in your mind?
I just think I came by it kind of natural. I mean, if you enjoy your job and if you learn your job and you're good at your job, it just comes natural. I don't remember any gunnery sergeants when I was coming up to that position. I just don't remember them. And, you know, you say, what gunny did I model myself after? What's funny is, what movies modeled their gunnies after me?
Are there a few?
Heartbreak Ridge, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Cigar smoking. That was me.
That's funny. Well, Dad, I just want to say thanks for doing this. Is there anything you would change about the Marine Corps and about just your time or anything like that?
No, I'm just glad that I got out when I did, because I see all the political stuff going on now, and that disturbs me. I mean, there was some political stuff going on when I was in, but we tried to stay away from it as much as we could. But now it's kind of hard to stay away from it, and I just don't think politics belongs in the military.
Some would wonder what you mean by that.
Well, political stuff interferes.
I mean, because I'm thinking about like political stuff even in sports right now, right? Obviously, that's very prominent, and I mean, it seems like everywhere we go, there's a political influence in, whether it be music, whether it be, you know, entertainment, now in sports. I mean, it just seems like we can't get away from politics in our, we'll call it quote unquote hobbies or fun things that we used to love to do.
Correct, but political stuff in the military gets people killed.
How so?
If you put limits on people when they're fighting a war, it gets them killed. You can't shoot at that guy unless he's got a gun in his hand. Doesn't matter that 2 minutes before he was shooting at you and he dropped his gun, because he knows you can't shoot at him if he doesn't have that gun in his hand. Rules of engagement. All of this stuff is political. You can't shoot at civilians. Well, the civilians are shooting at you, and if the guy's hiding behind him shooting at you, what are you supposed to do? Take the rounds? Too much politics. Combat doesn't have time for politics. You got a job to do. Do your job.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part right now, right? Is there's not people doing their job in your estimation?
I couldn't really say because I don't keep track of it, but I know I've heard a while back that there are too many lawyers looking over everybody's shoulder, and everybody's worried about, if I do such and so, am I going to go to jail? Am I going to wind up on trial for my life? You can't be thinking about that stuff when you're out there. The only thing you can think about is getting through, getting the mission done, and coming back alive.
You think, and again, it's hard to say because, you know, as you said, you've been out of it for a while, but I mean, do you think there are Marines that may be struggling with that right now, that they can't focus on duty, calling, mission?
Oh, I know there is.
Okay.
And I know that there are Marines struggling with all the political correctness. I didn't have that problem when I was in, thank God. If I thought you were a shithead, I told you were a shithead. Now you say that, they'll lock you up or throw you out.
Yeah, because that's hate speech, maybe.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. I want to play a game with you. Are you okay with that?
Depends on the game. I'm not playing strip poker with you.
That would be weird, and we're not going to do that, I promise.
Thank God.
No, it's this game I like to call Senseless. And so basically it's the 5 senses, and we put it on a die, and you roll it, and then based on what you roll, you answer. Okay.
What am I doing with this, drinking?
You could, but
no,
you're
'cause
going to
there's
swallow a
there's a
die
dice
in
in
there.
there.
Yeah, there is. So
And there's no rum, so
there's no rum. You are correct. That is
right.
a cup full, or there is a cup empty of rum. So just roll it, and then maybe on the table. There you go. And then whatever you roll, as long as you want, it's fine by me.
Of course, it fell on the floor.
Well, yeah, we won't have you re-roll. That's one of those things.
It's a 2.
It is a 2. Thank you for verifying that for me. So who is touching your life right now?
You mean besides God?
I mean, just when you hear that question, who's the first person that comes to your mind?
My wife.
Your wife.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is she in your mind touching your life right now?
Because she's so wonderful. I mean, she puts up with my crap. I mean, who wouldn't?
Well, I mean, there's probably a list, right?
Well, yeah, there's a list, but I figure she does pretty good putting up with my crap and keeping me squared away. So I'd have to say my wife.
Okay.
And my grandkids.
Ooh, your grandkids. We didn't even get to talk about them.
Yeah, well, let's not say we did.
All right, fair enough. So I'm going to give you a final say. What would you say? You get the final say, whatever you want to say. I don't know what you're going to say, so this will be fun.
Bye.
Okay.
I'm done.
I didn't know if you had any final thoughts or anything like that you wanted to share with us.
What, you wanted words of wisdom?
Maybe, if you got any. Do you have any words of wisdom for us?
Never completely empty your magazine. Always keep 2 rounds in there.
Why is that so important?
Because you never know when you might have to have backup ammo. And if you empty them all, then you're screwed.
Sound advice. Really good. I appreciate that. Dad, thanks for doing this, by the way, one more time. That's probably like 4 times now, but I don't know. But guys, I just want to remind you as we close out today's show that we just never know. We never know where our journey will take us. We never know what impact we're going to have not only on our world, but the people around us. And so I just want to remind us as we begin our Thanksgiving festivities, perhaps this is the kickoff to your Thanksgiving festivities. Just remind yourself of this. We just never know where we're going to go and where we're going to end up and who we're going to affect. So let that be our lesson this week as we close out today. And I just want to remind you of this. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes. Thank you again for listening to Other People's Shoes. As you know, I'm your host, Neil Matthews. Super excited. 100 episodes. It's official. I have now crossed a threshold that I never thought I would see happening, especially when you started episode 1, right? You're like, man, it is such an uphill climb to get to 100. And I'm super excited that you got a little taste of my dad today, right? Hopefully more than, what do they say? Mary Poppins used to say a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I don't know how that relates, but just the fact that you got a little glimpse into maybe how I was raised, how I grew up, and of course, I think you got a glimpse today of a man that I have a tremendous amount of adoration and respect for. And I didn't expect to get a little choked up here, but I really do love my dad. And even though our paths don't cross every single day, I still love my dad. And at the end of the day, I'm still grateful and thankful that I do have a dad that I can call on at any time, day or night. Might not always love it, but he's there for me. And that I am thankful for this Thanksgiving season. So thankful for that. Speaking of being thankful for things, next week we take a serious turn. And I don't want to hype it up too much, but I do want to tell you next week's episode is going to cause maybe you to stop in your place and really ask yourself, am I loving those around me? Here's a little sneak peek of next week's episode.
Gave him hair because I was hoping he could still be resuscitated, but then that wasn't the case, and that was already started ending up being the worst day I can remember.
That's right. We're going to be going out to Florida Now, every time we've gone out to Florida in the past, it's been very joyful. It's been very exciting. We've met some amazing people out in Florida, but next week's guest is no exception. We meet a very amazing young woman, and in fact, I cannot wait for you guys to sit and hear her story of her what happened when. I guarantee you this, if you walk away from next week's episode and you're not a little bit more emotional, a little bit more loving, and a little bit more caring as we walk into this holiday season, so stay tuned for that. That, of course, will take place on Wednesday. OPSpodcast.com is the place to be each and every Wednesday. Come back, listen to our show there. Of course, you can subscribe there. Also want to call to your attention that we are looking for guests for next season. So if you'd like to be a guest, a future guest on our show, of course, OPSpodcast.com, click on Be My Guest. And just want to say this, remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Hopefully you can make time to join us next Wednesday as we walk in other people's shoes.